All right, so I have with me here today devTools, who is leading the transition for President-elect TheySinned. He has also been tapped as the White House Chief of Staff for the upcoming administration. Thank you so much for being with me here today, devTools.
I'm glad to be here with you.
I want to ask you a few questions about the campaign, the transition, and what will happen after TheySinned is inaugurated. So I first wanted to ask you, how did you get involved with TheySinned, and how did you end up so heavily involved in this campaign?
So this is actually really interesting because I joined the campaign right after I came back to Roblox because I had quit for about 2 months to focus on college applications and whatnot. But I joined back in Roblox and I just went back to the NSA as usual. And then I found out that Devin was running for president, and I saw it as a great opportunity to help a friend because I had been friends with him for a little bit, and I decided to build him a rally center and make an applications game and whatnot. And then from there, I just became even more involved, and I helped, with all the applications and the administration sheet, and it's just been going. It's been pretty good, and I've been just trying to help him as much as possible.
Good. So you mentioned that you kind of got involved early on. So like, who else was kind of there with you? I know that you were there, obviously, and then there was a large role that Tim played. Oh, who else was involved in that startup
Yeah,
initially?
so originally I actually joined in, and I felt like I was kind of like right before the campaign really kicked off. It was right before, it was probably a couple weeks before, um, like all of the stuff with Ozzy came out and everything, and we ended up merging. But so basically, Durlock was there originally, and we had a couple people. It was basically everyone in the Legendary Studios Discord. That's where he kind of wrapped his campaign around. We just all, went in there and then went to LV and campaigned and everything. It was pretty cool.
Good. All right. I also wanted to ask you, in your personal opinion, this kind of is two questions in one. So when you first joined the campaign, like you described, did you expect to be where you are here today, preparing for Basin's inauguration, and then also, what are some factors that led to this moment?
So from the beginning, I had faith in Devin. I knew he would be able to make it through, and it's because he's such a likable person. Because, like, when you're so likable and you really have nothing, like no scandals and nothing, it's really hard to beat you. All the other candidates had some issue with them, and those were their downfalls. And I'm really happy we are here where we are today, and we're going to be getting ready for inauguration here. What was the second part of your question again?
Like, what are some of the key factors of his campaign that led to his victory in the end?
I think it was mostly his positive energy. We really tried to focus on everything positive, even though I did say we there are downfalls to the other candidates. As a campaign, we never pointed them out really. We tried to refrain from, talking about anything wrong with Ozzy when we first had the Ozzy issue, and then anything with JC Man or anything. We really tried to stay away from any negative vibes. We wanted to keep it positive.
So you kind of touched on this earlier. And so your role is basically the de facto leader of the transition. How do you think that process is going so far? Because with James, or rather Tim, on the Upshot podcast a few days ago, him and I kind of overviewed the cabinet appointments in some areas that we've seen senators have objections to certain appointments. So how do you think that process is going so far, and what else is left to do before Inauguration Day?
Yeah, so right now we're finishing up picking our directors, and I think we picked most of the military candidates at this point, but um, we're just releasing the nominations for now, and I'm going to be focusing on talking to senators and trying to get them involved with our nominees so they can understand their plans and why we picked them, because I truly believe every nominee we picked really does deserve the position we put them up for, because we wouldn't give them that opportunity if they didn't. And another thing is that the Senate doesn't realize that I'm going to be trying to keep a tight leash on all of our nominees so that, they don't go inactive or anything. I'll be monitoring them, and if they do, I'll talk to them and maybe even remove them if that was necessary. But hopefully, it doesn't get to that. But basically, we're gonna be working on Senate nomination, like getting them through the Senate soon. So I'll have to talk to the senators about that. But I think the transition's going pretty well. We have the inauguration. Everything is getting set up with the inauguration by Jed and Dev Gralius, and I think it's going to be a really nice ceremony.
I think so too. So now that we've kind of touched on the campaign and the transition, I want to focus on what will happen after January 21st and TheySinned as president. So, how do you think, if you could summarize this in a few sentences, how do you think TheySinned would be different than past presidents? Because he kind of campaigned on being someone outside the inner circle, someone who operates differently, and he's kind of so far, I think he's shown that by picking people for the cabinet that some people weren't expecting, people who haven't been in there before. So, how do you think he'll be different from past presidents?
I think the main difference is that he's going to be very active with the people and listen to them and take their ideas into consideration. And a lot of what we do is going to be based around what the people want, because people have been like the citizens have been kind of neglected in past administrations. They just haven't gotten as much of a voice as they should, and we want to incorporate them in the political aspect as much as we can.
All right, and then on more of a personal level, you'll become chief of staff on January 21st. So, what are some of your basic plans for that? And on top of that, do you have any personal objectives for the term? Do you plan on staying on for the entire term, or are you planning on moving on at some point, or what are your plans?
So, as White House Chief of Staff, I'm planning on focusing on the nominees we pick and trying to make sure they're all active and just keeping a tight leash on them, as well as trying to work with Devin and getting things passed through Congress and all of that. And it's going to be a lot of work to do that. And then I'm going to try to make sure that the White House is also more active. I'm going to see if maybe we can get the press corps active again, and I'm really hoping to get things running in the White House again. And I want to stay through the entire term, but I'm going to be going to college after this term, so I'm not aspiring for anything higher or anywhere different in NUSA at this point. So
All right, well, I think that about wraps it up. I want to wish you and the whole team best of luck in the transition and in the first term of Dason's presidency. Thank you so much for speaking with me here tonight.
thank you for having me.